All right. So welcome out to our book discussion about crucial conversations, and it will be led by Leah Marie Edwards. So I'll turn the time over to her.
Okay, so, well, in a discussion, I was hoping first that we could all talk about things that stood out to us or any questions from it or things that we've used from this book. So, I know that's a big lot of questions. But was there something that stood out to you, Alice?
I haven't reviewed the book, but
that's okay.
one of the first things they talk about is your fight or flight, like when somebody comes to you and it's a conflict, like your blood runs to your arms and legs instead of your brain. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. It explains a lot why maybe you might react to something than to, have a better response.
Yeah, you're not thinking as clearly. You're not getting that blood to your brain. You need it. Yeah, in those situations, it can be kind of crucial.
And going with what Alice said, one thing that I always look at now, since we've read this, is the fool's choice, where you end up making, you end up thinking that there's only two choices and you have to make one of those two choices in the moment because you're not thinking clearly. But then if you actually take the time to take and step back, you realize, no, there's like 5, 6 different choices that I can make here. And a lot of them are going to be a lot more reasonable than the two that sprang to my mind. And so I try to explain that to my kids too, on occasion, that, hey, there's more choices than the two that pop into your head at the moment. You just have to analyze the situation and take the time to do so.
Don't limit yourself. You don't have to. I thought that was really cool that you can empower yourself if you're willing to think it through a little bit more.
The first thing that really jumped out to me was being able to sit back and analyze myself and say, this is what I do in that situation, which I am most of the time, non-confrontational person. So a lot of times I flee, shut it down and go away.
Yeah. I totally get that.
I do too. I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Being able to see that in myself, I think, is one of the biggest first eye openers to making those conversations go better.
Well, that's right, because now you can take and know that about yourself and say, okay, now I'm going to start making this progress and actually changing that discussion from me leaving to actually having a conversation or whatever the next step that you see is. So, yeah.
Yeah. And if we don't talk about it, then nothing changes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most of the time, I guess. Most of the time, our conflicts don't resolve themselves just because we ignore them, unfortunately.
Right.
Or you can try to talk about it to somebody, but they don't want to hear it.
Yeah. And when he addressed that, I thought that was really interesting, that there's more than one way. Like if they find something as offensive, then we can kind of backpedal, figure out why they understood it that way, and see if we can tell them the facts that we see in a way that's non-confrontational. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I thought it was really interesting that we can try it again. We can try it in a different way.
Right.
Maybe not try it 1,000 times at once. Give it some time. Occasionally, you'll need a break, and they'll need a break because they're going to feel like you're pestering them. But when it's really important and crucial conversations are, that we can try it in a new way, be innovative. And hopefully they will try to, like, if they want something out of this conversation too, if they want something out of your relationship.
Well, I know I've had to step back and, like, instead of saying things that pop into my head, I need to, and get mad about something, I need to calm down and think about it before I say anything, because otherwise it comes out not how I mean.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's hard when we're emotional. And if it's something that matters to us, we're probably pretty passionate about it. So it's really hard at that point.
Yeah.
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 Something that I really liked is that I have like a ton of these note cards, so I'm gonna probably look at them occasionally. But he said to start with heart and to figure out what you really want from the conversation, what you want from that relationship, and then ask yourself, is how I'm responding or how I am acting something that I would do if I actually wanted the result that I say that I want? And I thought that was really interesting because sometimes, no, the way that I'm acting is not how I would act if I actually wanted what I was saying I wanted.
Right.
Sometimes I want to be right.
Yes. And that's a great point, Leah Marie. I agree with you 100%. That's what I always thought too. Whenever I was reading that is, those discussions I had before, I wanted to be right. But, I lost the perspective of what I really wanted out of that discussion.
Yeah. And then when we can find like that mutual point of reaching an agreement of, if we want this communication to be a good one between us and this other person, and if they want it to be a good one, then somehow we need to find a way together that we can do this, that we can broach this important subject and keep our relationship intact. And he gave a lot of good tips for doing that. I thought it was cool when he said like talking tentatively and making sure that when you tell a story, you tell it as if it is your story and not the facts. Because sometimes we see something or someone says something and we're like, oh, this person, they just hate me and they're out to get me or something. And actually, here are the facts. Here's what happened. And if we tell them, so this is how I perceive it, is that right? They can tell us yes or no.
Right.
That's good.
I was gonna say this applies even more so in our online conversations, emails, text.
Yeah.
Because so many times you don't get across those intonations. So it's how you perceive the words more so than how they meant them.
Yeah. Definitely.
I've
And
had
that's so hard.
I've had more arguments over text than in person.
Yeah.
Texting, sometimes you take it out of proportion what they're saying. If they'd actually say it, then you would know how they're reacting, if it's supposed to be mean or a joke or what.
Miss all those things like sarcasm and eye rolls and
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. There's something from one of my classes we were reading in this textbook too, and it talked about how when we communicate, sometimes we are tempted to think that it's like we send one message and that person receives it and they interpret it and then we're done. That's how it works. But actually, we're constantly sending and receiving back and forth, and there's also noise. So like how that person's feeling, if they're hungry, if they're tired, if they're like just all of these different things. If someone said something to them in the street and it was good or bad or anything, they bring that into a conversation. And so it might not even be what you said that they're upset about, but they might not realize that.
Right.
It just gets kind of muddled in the conversation. And so it's like crazy because you have to try to figure that out and figure out what's the underlying problem and how you can face it.
Well, and I know for me personally, I also then take the whole of the history of that person and my interactions with them, and of course tie that then to it. And that shouldn't always be the case. It is good to know the past, but not necessarily continue to push that onto the person who you're talking to, because they're going to change and grow, and circumstances are going to be different for them too.
Yeah. And they're going to hope that they see you as changing and growing as well.
That's right. And hopefully they're not taking the totality of everything I've done too, because boy, I'd be in trouble.
Say knowing the history can be good or bad. It means you could view somebody as, I know that they're not normally this way, so we'll give them some leeway, or the other way around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Has anyone used anything from the book in their lives?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I have.
I have.
Like I said before, I've used that fool's choice. And now, even more, I'm using the idea of having a safe, making it safe to have a conversation, especially with my children. I'm working hard at making sure that they can speak how they feel, and I don't get upset about it and then totally shut down communication, and vice versa, that I can say what I need to in a way that doesn't make them fight or flight. So, and I'll tell you, I've seen a lot of growth in my family from that. My relationships with my children have really grown. So it's been very beneficial.
That's so good that you said that, because I feel the same way with my son, because he's 13 and he's going through that preteen stuff. And I've had to slow down in my thought processing when he's talking to me and let him talk and finish before I even start saying anything. And it has helped us tremendous. So
With our children, it is so easy to jump to conclusions without waiting to hear the end of what they
Right.
have to say. I know this after many kids.
Well, and I'm also letting them fail at things too, instead of, like you were saying, Bonnie, trying to fix the end thing. I'm letting them fail and then come to me and have the discussion, and then examining every aspect of it and helping them realize, oh, here's where things kind of went off the rails. And it's neat seeing that growth too, because then they apply that later in other things that they're doing. So.
Lori, did you have anything that stood out to you?
Hi, Lori.
Hi, Lori.
You have turned your mute off. Please wave at us. Maybe she's not there.
I know something that I found interesting is that when you contrast with someone, so when you do have a differing view, that you feel strongly that this is right, but you also, when you're understanding that you don't want to just be right, you want to figure out if you're right, that you can state your point of view without apologizing. I thought that was interesting, like that they specified you don't apologize at that point, that you can be humble as well as confident. And I was like, how do you be humble and confident? But he explained it really well, and understanding that, like, you're allowed to have your own opinions as long as you're also willing to invite, encourage, plead for people to share their own opinions as well, to challenge you, and to do so, with their own level of passion and conviction, so that you can figure out what's the best way to meet, like, an agreement. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, no, it is really cool. And I struggle with that because of my role as supervisor or whatever I am. I struggle with that whole concept because, the world has told me growing up that you're supposed to be one thing, but it hasn't been that effective. And so now I'm trying to be something else, and yet there's that clash within myself. And so, poor Alice and Heather and you, Leah Marie, and others have to deal with that clash. But I'm trying to do better. I really am.
We're all a work in progress.
Yep.
Amen to
We're
that.
all work in progress.
Well, and I'll tell you, whenever you're getting input, to me, that is like the mountaintop of intellect, in my opinion. Because when you're getting input fed to you from different people and their ideas are coming out there and challenging your ideas, I mean, there is so much growth that comes from that. So many great ideas come from that. So much expansion happens when that's happening. And why I fight it sometimes is just beyond me, because it's amazing when you get to that point.
I
Well,
think go ahead, Heather.
that's right. Sometimes I think we live in a society that you have to do something one way, and it's always done that way. So that's the way you have to do it. That's how I grew up. My mom, you have to clean the house one way. Well, so you grow up thinking that. But there's always different ways, and you just have to keep your mind open to those other ways and it's really hard to do when you're set in your ways.
See, and it's funny, it all comes back to that, doesn't it? It comes back to the idea there's the fool's choice. It comes back to the idea of all these different things. That's really cool.
Yeah. And keeping your mind open.
Yeah.
That's an important part.
And you don't have to be right.
Right.
I was going to say, as humans, we like our comfort, so we don't like change.
Right.
But to grow, we need change.
Right.
And that goes from everything from our own personal things to our communities,
Just like this COVID, I think it's bringing people closer,
Mm-hmm.
It's,
Well,
it's
I've seen it in my family. So.
Yeah, me too.
I was gonna say, that's where I've seen it within our family. We said no to a lot of things that we didn't used to say no to, so we stay home more. We spend more time together. We do things that are really important for family building and being close as a family.
Right.
That's the biggest benefit I've seen of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Stay home more.
Yeah.
And I think you save money.
In some ways.
Well, maybe not food wise, but I mean, like, gas, and you're not going everywhere. You're not going to the movies. You're not going, you're not going out anywhere. So.
And when you do get to go out, when you choose to, you appreciate it so much more.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's special.
We went, for my birthday, we went to Hayes, and we went to the mall for a few minutes, and a couple minutes in the mall, and I was like, why did we ever like doing this? Let's get out of here.
Right?
3 people hollering, look at this, look at this, look at this. And what I might want to look at, and then chasing a toddler, and I was like,
Yep.
Differing perspectives there. I'm sure they were like, oh. Yeah.
Makes you think about how you spend your time a little bit more.
Yeah.
Definitely does. And in those conversations that you have with the people that matter most in your life too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I know it's been cool for me because even though I'm at college and not with my family, we still video call like every week and kind of keep in touch that way. We're more aware of the technology that we have at our disposal right now.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so another thing that stood out to me is that we can pay attention to when people are starting to feel unsafe in our conversations with them. Like you were saying, Heather, like how it sometimes people don't take it well. We can sometimes, if we're like looking for it, we can tell when they're starting to put up a wall or get defensive, or if they're not taking what we're saying the way that we are trying to get across. And so then we can, that's when we know that moment to backpedal, pause, and reroute, new way. But we have to be looking for those signs. And they can be pretty subtle sometimes. And other times they're not. I mean, their face is turning red and they're like, you know, you can tell they're not happy right then. So after having read this book and with all the things that we've talked about, what is something that you are excited to, is excited the right word? Motivated to try to use in libraries and with patrons? Are there any ways that you're going to change, or, I mean, I don't know if you were already doing a lot of this stuff anyways, so that you just thought of more and how you can interact with people there?
Not so much with patrons,
Okay.
but how I interact with my board is going,
Okay.
you know, figuring out how to bring things up within a board meeting, that changes that need to be made or things that need to be addressed.
Yeah, and that's a very crucial setting too.
And how those conversations play out, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and see that, I think that's the most valuable part of this for librarians is taking the information you get here for boards, or if you're in a school environment for administrators or whoever, and share your information that can go into the pool of meaning and help them understand what you're seeking and attempting to do.
Then your team is stronger and better because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I really think one thing that I want to try and do a little bit better too is one, master my story, but then also hear how others have gotten to their conclusions. I think those are two big things that I need to work on even more, and I'm excited to try. Is that those two items?
That's something that I found that I do a lot. Like, I don't know if that's my overthinking or something, but sometimes I'll think that people are just like super not impressed with something that I did. And then if you talk with them about it, no.
Yeah.
It's not the, like, so we put all of this pressure on ourselves, but if we look at the actual facts, if we're willing to talk with someone and see what their actual conclusions are, then a lot of times we can be pleasantly surprised.
I found that I'm right, maybe 1 in 100. If maybe even 1 in 1,000, honestly, because most times I'm way off on what people are thinking, and you know.
Do you feel like that when you know you're right and someone's arguing with you about it, that you have to, like, sometimes I just have to prove that I'm right instead of just letting it go, and I need to let it go more than who cares, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely get that one too.
I'm the exact opposite, Heather. I might know I'm right, and I want them to know that I'm right.
Right.
But I hate the argument, so I'll just let it go. And like, oh, okay, well, I'm not even going to tell you then. And I walk away. So I'm the exact opposite.
See, that's what I need to do instead of, you know, because there's just some people that,
We both need a happy medium.
yeah.
You gotta find that way to state your views in a way that encourages other people to share theirs as well.
Right.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm hoping to be able to try that effectively. I'll put hoping in there because a lot of these things, I think it's amazing, and I'm hoping to be able to work on one thing and get it, and then add more.
Right.
If I just try it all at once, I'm gonna overwhelm myself.
Yep. Little bit at a time. Little baby steps.
Ooh, and I don't know. I think it was in the afterword that I read. It was yeah, all a blur. But one of the authors was saying that multiple people have told him that like this book is amazing, changed my communication, changed my life. And he's like, oh, like what part? And they're like, well, this part. And he's like, well, how much did you read? And they're like, I skimmed it. And he's like, what? You didn't even read the whole book and it already like impacted your life that much? And so it just points out that there's lots of principles. And even when we're just paying more attention to our conversations, if we're listening more intently, we're already trying to be more effective in our communication. We don't have
and I think what you said there, Lee Marie, is absolutely right. And I think that we will find once we do act more attentively and more and have these conversations more engaged, but there's a lot of these things he talks about that we already do, contrasting and I can't even remember all the little skills that he teaches you, but if you're truly engaged, you're kind of already doing that because you're strategically thinking, how can I make this better? And through that process, you're probably using some tools you picked up at other times. Because I know there are a few things in there I recognize as things that I do. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm actually on the right path here. And I'm not as dumb as I thought I was, but that's a cool thing too, to realize that you're probably doing some of it once you're engaged and actually trying.
Yeah.
Part of that, I think, is just being maybe not so much self-aware, although I think that's what was really important to me, is being self-aware of myself, but being aware of everything going on, like you talked about the noise that other people have going on in their lives that might change how that conversation goes.
Yeah. And I think also we have to give ourselves and we have to give others the benefit of the doubt too. Especially right now, it's so hard with COVID and with all of everything else and being home and just all these added pressures and things that probably people are meaning something better than we anticipate or are worried about. And we just have to give ourselves that chance to prove that it's for the good. And I mean, we can find out if that's true or not when we voice the story that we perceive as a possibility and verify it.
Yeah. Well, I think our current political climate is something we can use to practice. I mean, honestly, not that I want to bring politics into this discussion, but right now we have two polar opposites, it seems like, where one side thinks the other's evil and the other side thinks the other side's evil.
And there's no middle.
Yeah. But yet I think if you
they're
really,
both kind of evil.
I think if you really looked deep, you would find that both sides had truly good intentions in all that they do. And I think that sometimes we've let a lot of that other noise and other thinking get in there and corrupt it. Just a thought.
And also too, I think that a lot of people, I don't know, especially in rural areas, they go to libraries for access to internet and things and current stuff, we have info at libraries that people don't know how to access exactly anywhere else. Like librarians, wealths of knowledge. And so when we can, like I was watching the Arcel conference and talking about having like difficult conversations there. They talked about how you have to be unbiased when you're having a discussion with someone, but be able to help them talk things through as well. Because sometimes there might be people who don't see eye to eye in the library or something, and you're in that situation where you have to be a mediator or kind of calm down a situation that you weren't expecting to be in. I don't know how that is back home right now, but I know there's a lot of heated people all over the country right now.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, if you dwell on it, it's going to affect you. I don't get on the news. I don't, I'm hardly on Facebook anymore because that's all you see. So you just kind of have to step away from it.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of people right now who are in that mindset of, I don't even care. I just want to step away from it and live my life, not even pay attention because there's been so much conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And that conflict, really affects our personal relationships with people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not like motivating anyone to be better because there's a lot of conflict just back and forth. It's not to meet a mutual purpose or
Right.
Like going back to the, was it mutual purpose and mutual?
There's no goal.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, I have like 30 note cards. It was in here something. But yeah, just understanding what we want for our country, what we want for our communities, what we want for our families, what we want for our friendships and people that we meet on the street. Like that's a relationship too sometimes. Like if you stop and talk and have an actual good conversation. Oh, Lori said something.
She said, I agree. There's a lot of negative things going on in the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where all of us need to read this book and have conversations and not tell the other side they're wrong and walk away.
Oh.
We got to work towards something good, preferably.
So with all of this going on right now, the book I've been reading just really hardcore is The 9 Presidents Who Destroyed America and the 4 Who Tried to Save Her, which is a really good book because it's so packed with history and the Constitution. And it's given me such perspective that when people get to arguing either side, I'm like, y'all need some perspective. This is old news.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, anyway.
Nope, that's cool.
So I don't know how long we were wanting.
Just till we're done.
Okay.
No time
Any
limit.
other insights or questions? I can review the book. We have a question. I can look for it. Well, I'm really glad for everyone that came and shared and was willing to be open because that's very important for this conversation and for us to be able to grow and to have something to help us to be better communicators as a whole. So thank you so much. And I'm excited to see you guys when I come back after this semester.
Yeah, when are you coming?
When is that? When is that?
January. Well, I'll be done in December, but I'm going to help my sister.
In January? Cool.
Mhm.
Okay.
I'll be back in January.
All right.
Forward to it.
We're excited to have you come.
Yep. Well, thank you, Lee Marie. I appreciate you
Yeah,
leading
good
our
job.
discussion today. You did a great job. And I appreciate everybody who participated. And yeah, so we'll end this session and the recording will be on our website. And if you have any other thoughts or ideas about the book, please don't hesitate to let me know. So thank you, everybody, and have a good rest of your day.